It is Saturday, the 23rd of February, out across Port Hedland, Broome, and Karratha, Western Australia. In yesterday's video, we talked about the threat of a severe tropical cyclone looming on the horizon, and based on the latest data that has become available, there is no reason to disregard this threat. The United States Joint Typhoon Warning Center is monitoring two areas for tropical cyclone formation near Western Australia. The westernmost area of low pressure is no threat to land, and the one that is closest toward Port Hedland actually has a better chance of development, and within the last 6 hours they have upgraded the 24-hour development potential to medium. The Bureau of Meteorology has also updated their forecast track for the tropical low situated to the northwest of Broome, and as we work our way into 2 a.m. on Monday, they are expecting the tropical low to strengthen into a Category 2 cyclone, but I am still more concerned about what the intensity will be beyond Monday, as it looks as though the system has a good chance of strengthening into at least a Category 3 or Category 4 severe cyclone before pushing into Western Australia. The latest regional radar animation from weatherzone.com.au shows that we have a very broad area of low pressure already starting to get its act together well offshore to the northwest of Broome, and of course the radar networks out across the coastal communities cannot pick up on the full details of the circulation considering it's still well offshore, but the standard satellite infrared animation also reveals a strengthening area of low pressure just to the northwest of Broome. As you can see, convection is on the rise, which is to be expected for this early in the morning. This is the diurnal maximum of convection on average, and later on this afternoon we may see another temporary decrease in convection. This is a normal pattern with early developing tropical cyclones, but over the next several days the storm is going to continue to become better organized, and we will see more in the way of convection day by day. Also, as we turn on the water vapor animation, you can see that the ridge that was once holding steady over Western Australia is still sliding toward the east, and the reason why we are concerned about a gradual turn toward the south-southwest is that we're going to see more in the way of troughiness that is already starting to set up on the latest 6-hour animation. The latest low-level vorticity analysis shows that we still have two competing areas of low pressure within the monsoon trough, but within the last 6 to 12 hours, the vorticity max to the northeast of Port Hedland is starting to become better defined, and this is going to be the growing trend over the next 1 to 2 days, as the upper-level divergence, which is a very favorable parameter for tropical cyclone development, continues to increase and focus itself more so near the Kimberley coast. And as a result of that, we are seeing less in the way of vertical wind shear, because as more in the way of convection develops in this area, that heat release is going to allow for more surface convergence and upper-level divergence. It's a convective feedback loop. And as we go ahead and look at the latest wind shear color representation, these navy blue and dark blue colors here represent the areas that are most favorable for tropical cyclone development, and the conditions are expected to become increasingly more favorable just to the north of the Pilbara. Also, as we take a look at the oceanic heat content, which is a measure of not only the warmth at the surface of the ocean, but also the depths below, we can see that we have plenty of fuel for this system to develop. So when you factor in very light vertical wind shear, a lot of instability and moisture combined with very warm sea surface temperatures, this is looking like a pattern that will support the development of a severe cyclone this time around. This is the most recent run of the ECMWF model. As we go into 24 and 48 hours, you can see the tropical cyclone continuing to intensify offshore. The ridging is now completely flattened here well to the south of the tropical cyclone. As we go into 72 hours, we see more troughing beginning to take shape out across the southern portion of the territory, and by day 4 this fully captures the tropical cyclone, with it turning more toward the pole, and therefore we are seeing a landfall very close to Port Hedland. Yesterday it looked as if a tropical cyclone landfall in this particular event would be most likely somewhere between Broome and Karratha, and as we take a more zoomed in look at the ECMWF model depiction, as we go 4 to 4.5 days into the future, we are still looking at potentially a severe tropical cyclone making landfall near or very close to Port Hedland as we work our way into Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. But this is still nothing more than a 4-day model forecast, and there's still some time for this to change, and you're going to want to pay very close attention to the official forecast tracks that come out from the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. So with all of this in mind, all interests across the northern coast of Western Australia should be keeping a very close watch on this developing tropical low. But if this solution were to verify, again, this is going to be a very severe cyclone making landfall near or very close to Port Hedland, and anywhere that is over or just to the east of the eye will be experiencing the most destructive winds, and the highest storm surge will also be just to the east, as this is where the strongest onshore flow is with those northerly winds. So this is going to be something to keep in mind, especially over the next coming days once the storm really begins to crank and we get a better idea as to where the center of circulation will be making landfall. This is the current depiction of what things should look like based on the latest UK Met model, and we still see nothing more than a very broad area of low pressure. But as we go into 24 hours, we are starting to see more signs of development. If anything, it still looks as though the UK Met may be just a bit too far toward the west within the first day or day and a half. But as we go into 48 and 72 hours, we're starting to see very good agreement between the UK Met and ECMWF with a severe cyclone developing. And again, we still have a window of opportunity for this landfall to change. It could be a little bit more toward the east or a little more to the west, so you're just going to have to stay tuned. As we look at our third forecast model, this is the Canadian CMC model run, and as we go into 24 hours, you can see the tropical low starting to really develop north of Port Hedland. As we go into 36 hours, notice that we have more troughing here across the southwest portion of the territory, and this is going to try to pull the tropical cyclone more so toward the southeast. And as you can see here, this Canadian CMC model solution is actually a little closer toward Broome, so this is still a solution that we cannot completely rule out. Although I will tell you that one tendency that the CMC often has is for the trough to sharply curve the tropical cyclone a little too quick and too far to the east. That's not to say that it's wrong in this particular case, however, so this is still something that we're going to have to monitor for interest more toward the eastern half of the coastline. Finally, the GFS model is also one of our better models, and as we go into 24 hours, you can see that the model is still showing nothing more than a very broad area of low pressure. But as we go into 48 hours, you can really see that we will probably have at least a Category 1 cyclone on our hands by this time. And very similar to the Canadian model, we actually still see that more easterly track. This is still a little bit more to the east of what the ECMWF is showing. So areas along the Kimberley coast, you could still definitely feel the impacts of this storm. You are still well within the crosshairs, especially for interest just to the southwest of Broome, because this is where some of the models are showing a landfall. So anywhere from Karratha eastward up into this region, this is probably your most likely bet for right now. But keep in mind the model still can change quite a bit until we have a more concentrated area of low pressure to track. And in the meantime, it's going to be a guesstimate as to where the low first forms, and that's a big part of the forecast track and the chances of the models making a mistake. So that wraps up update number 1 for this Saturday. Please go ahead and follow us at 28storms.com and also our social networks on Facebook and Twitter for continuous tropical cyclone updates.